There are a couple to choose from. One of them is that as a chemist, I felt a little bit on the outside of what might be considered conventional for a scientist's career path, in the sense that it was never really all about science for me. I was never only living to be a scientist. I also enjoyed, for example, the arts and music. And I enjoyed editing my high school literary magazine, for example. And as a scientist also, I found that there's significant variety even in a student's day-to-day, right? So I'd go from one lecture and I'd talk to my friends who were involved in research, and we'd go off to our separate research labs. I'd go and work on a problem set or an academic lab. And as a graduate student, I found that some of that wasn't there. I needed to find variety in other ways in my days. And I did that with side projects. And that wound up being pretty important. But I didn't know that at the time. At the time, it sort of felt like I was losing focus. And according to a certain model of how a scientist should be, that really felt like something I was doing that represented a significant risk. But that at the same time turned into its own kind of stuff. Another situation, another thing that might be described more precisely as an obstacle, was actually my first attempt to get into policy as a career. I applied for a AAAS, an American Academy for the Advancement of Science, a AAAS fellowship, actually with the American Chemical Society. And I applied. I went all the way through to the interview process, and I didn't wind up getting it. And it was not perhaps entirely crushing, because they're quite competitive. But it was that process that actually made me realize, hey, this is something I really want. I'd experienced other kinds of failures in applying for faculty positions or other kinds of jobs. But that's the one that really I felt the most drive to overcome. And I think that's an important lesson. That was an important lesson for me, is to pay attention to some of that intuition. If you need something, like I needed variety earlier on in my career, and I still do, or if a particular setback feels more crushing than the other ones, that wound up speaking to me and showing me, hey, this is a direction that I should really pay attention to.